by showing stories of success. That's how we get buy-in. Consider contests. We're going to talk about that here later today. And then, of course, recruit. Of course, recruit. New team members that do not already have these ingrained habits. Doesn't mean that your current people can't change, but change is hard if you're in lead receiving mode and not in generating mode. Some will change, some will struggle. Your new crop, you teach the model you want to be running. Follow me? Cool. So on that note, I want to bring my man Steve up here. He's accomplished some really great things, and I want to talk about this process with him. Steve, welcome.
Thank you for having me out.
Yeah, man, thank you for being here. So on the screen, Steve, I know it's a little hard to see for us here, but I've got an Excel screenshot, and that highlighted section, gang, that is, those are Steve's numbers, Steve's team's numbers. Now, this is a random group. I was doing some analysis about a week ago, and this really caught my eye. What caught my eye here? Steve is already doing pretty well. You see his June appointment numbers in that first column, then you see July appointments, but then you see August appointments. These are team appointments. Then if you look at the next column there, you've got June's calls, July's calls, pretty consistent with one another, but then August calls. Steve, we went from 57 appointments to 107 in August, from June to August. We went from June calls of 1,100 to almost 6,500 in August.
Yep.
What happened?
So, first thing I'll say is that we found a really awesome shiny object. It's called Brivity. And it's one of those shiny objects that we've had access to over and over again. And I gotta express like a huge amount of gratitude to both you and especially to my man Bob Stewart. Bob, are you in the audience somewhere here? You there? Bob's probably out fixing somebody's Brivity problems right now. With the Brivity Roadshow, what had happened was we took the entire team there, and even though everyone on the team has gone through the training, I kind of equate it to learning a second language. Just anyone here back in high school do Spanish, French, or something like that? It's like imagine going through that and then skipping a year and then expecting to implement it at a high level. The agents go through it, and then when they actually go to implement it, like they're still learning the alphabet, but we're expecting them to have full sentences because we haven't done it at a high enough level. And so when you asked me like to kind of summarize like what happened, I kind of came up with this little cheesy like acronym. I said CASK. It was culture, accountability, systems knowledge, and then partners, the place partners. So starting out with the culture, one of the big changes we had is we actually added on one new agent in July, and that new agent gave us the ability to reestablish our culture and all of our standards.
Explain that a bit more. I think I know where you're going with it, but I'm super curious.
Yeah, so we brought in Jordan, a new agent we've been working with for a couple months to get on board, but he finally moved from California over to Denver, got him going, and I told the rest of the team members, hey guys, we're gonna lean into this. Like you guys, and to be frank, there were some agents in the team that were struggling. They found some success early in the year, yet they weren't consistent, and a lot of that was their lack of consistent lead generation. And I was like, hey, this pain you're feeling right now, we need to make sure that the culture is number one, a culture of productivity and a culture of profitability. Because no matter how fun our time is hanging out together, if somebody in your midst is going broke, it's just a matter of time before they become a cancer, or you need to help them offboard earlier. And when we have their best interest in mind, you have to make sure that you're leaning in that. So the culture right away. So when Jordan came in, we made sure that the other agents, Gavin and Michael and Adam, really leaned in to show them how to do what they should be doing and actually do it. The accountability part of it. So on one of the Monday calls, Ben was talking about how a lot of his key players will send him a text message every single day. We kept struggling with the accountability, and my phenomenal operations director, Nicole, is sitting here in the audience. And what we discovered is we kind of started getting to that like disappointed dad interaction feeling, where it's like, oh man, like, why didn't you do this? You could do so much better. And another with huge gratitude, I've been listening to Growth Day almost every day. So if you're not doing that, if you're not getting your team members in a Growth Day, please do. It helps them have a much more positive outlook on everything. And so then with the accountability side of it, when you're having that positive accountability, it's amazing how much more they're going to buy in on it. When you're asking them, like, how do you feel about how you did? And they're like, I feel terrible. I'm like, do you like feeling like that? And they're like, no. And I'm like, great, don't. Like, let's not do that anymore. And they're like, oh, okay, great. So instead of me coming down on them, I'm lifting them up and just pointing out, like, hey, you're empowered to solve this. And getting that consistent accountability. And so what Ben had said was, send that text message out. And I told everyone on the team, I'm like, this isn't for me, this is for you. Like every morning I get a text message on my phone, and if somebody doesn't, and unfortunately it is one of the green bubbles now, because we have a couple of green bubbles in there. That one's for you, Hatch. So every morning we get the text messages in, and if somebody's missing it, I make sure to text them and just say like, Ron, question mark, Gavin, question mark, what's going on? And so they send their commitments in, and at the end of every day, they're submitting the same thing back to me. Only then they're putting a green check mark next to it if they hit it, or they're putting a red X next to it if they don't.
So Steve, let me interject real quick, because the commitments obviously had something to do with making a boatload of calls.
Yes.
Right, like you went literally 6x'd the quantity of calls over 60 days. There was a sizable culture shift for sure. We talked about this whole what's in it for me. Like I've got to show my agents what's in it for them, why they need to take these actions. How did you do that? Like what did you say? What did you do? How did you get that buy-in?
You know, it's funny, you just had the slide up on what's in it for me and all these different steps. We inadvertently did a lot of those things without even necessarily knowing. So we started doing some little contests. The partners piece of my little acronym, so I'm super grateful, like Jody Walco in the audience here had reached out after our Brevity Day, and then we set up a team versus team call night, we had a lot of fun doing it. We had some prizes, we made some social media things around it, that got people bought in. We started making sure that people were actually in the office doing the power-ups. It's so weird, like we're given like the culture and how to implement this, but so many of us, including me, like I like to think I'm one of the most intelligent idiots in the room, because I'm like, oh no, we can skip this, we can skip that, and so we literally just start following the process.
So I wanted, you said we had them in office.
Yes.
Power-ups, my assumption then is they weren't always in office during power-ups, just that proximity, just that personal interaction.
Proximity, personal interaction, and getting there and getting after it.
Yeah.
We shortened our meetings down to make sure we're hitting that 30-minute power-up and then getting after it. We're encouraging people so that if it's 10 minutes after our power-up's done and they're not on the phones, like, hey, what's going on with the phones? Like, are you on track to hit your goals today? And so that was a big benefit of it. Another thing is I looked in that proximity, the place partners, and I started looking for case studies, and I actually got this from one of the metrics people in our group. They were saying that one of the agents on their team who had done 39 transactions last year had averaged 82 to 87 contacts per week. Well, this year, that same agent is averaging 167 contacts per week in order to be on track for 37 minutes. So double the activity, slightly less production. And so as we're getting into and part of that in June, to be frank, I get a text message from Ben at night being like, buddy, what's going on? Like our profitability is not looking great. And that kicked me in the butt. And then I went back to everyone else and I'm like, how are you feeling on your goals? Like we are halfway through the year. What percentage are you on track for your goals? And if they're like, I'm 30% on track, you should be 50. Okay, well then it looks like you got about a 40 to 60% increase in your activities if you want to make that goal. And do you want to hit the goal or do you want to change that goal?
You said so many smart things that you shared there. You breezed over something, I want to double down on it. You said case study.
Yeah.
And I find that interesting where you more or less presented evidence of others that were doing certain things to your agents to get their buy-in and support. And I think that's so intelligent because I think everybody in this room, we're all partners. And if you don't have a testimonial or evidence within your org, you can reach out to 274 others that may have that case study. It sounds like you that's what you did, yeah.
Sitting in the Brevity Day, and Bob starts talking about his mom who did 70-something transactions door knocking. And I looked over, and these are all like mid-20s. It seems like a young group right now, mid-20s of guys for the most part. And because to be frank, I blew up my team, and last September went down to one agent myself because we just didn't have the right culture. And so when I looked over at these guys, and I'm like, hey, a retired lady is just wiping the floor with you. Like, how does that make you feel? I'm like, do you think you can do better? And every one of them was just like, oh my God, like I need to get myself in gear. Like
they're not going to catch her.
Yeah, and they're not going to catch her. They're totally not going to catch her. But now they see what's up, the option out there. And the same way for a new agent that's joining your team, how they can use the team numbers as their successes. we can use, just like you said, we can use every one of you out there have somebody who's doing something amazing, hopefully, and we can use that individual as an example that our people can do the same thing.
I love it.
Yeah.
One more question for you, right?
Yeah.
Like when you think around, is there something that stands out as like the biggest difference maker? The thing that, again, you went from 1,000 to 6,000 plus calls, and now you're seeing all the lag measures, you're seeing it show up in results. If there's one thing that everybody should go home and do, now maybe you've already said it, but I just want to make sure we cover this. One thing they should go do to create generation the way that you did, lead generation, what would it be?
Systems knowledge. As boring as that sounds, to see people on my team with their eyes lighting up, like I've got an 80,000 person database that is not producing the numbers right now that Bob showed us that it really can. And when you start diving into all of the different filters, the searches, and just hitting the Brevity 10, like we just weren't doing it. And when they saw the impact of it and lean into the staff, lean into the team here, because I had said it over and over again, I hadn't sat down and actually showed them. I wasn't the Brevity Ninja that I'm working on becoming. And so whatever you do, become a Brevity Ninja, and if you can't, or you're not yet, lean into Bob and his team. Get those examples. And wherever Brevity is hosting that next live event, if you need to travel to get there, travel to get there. It's so worth it. Because you can see right there, like I wish this was some amazing leadership thing that I did. It's not. It's a combination of leaning into all of these things that have been at my fingertips since I joined Place.
Number one, you've done a phenomenal job leading. So I'll say it for you. So great job there. And number two, you set up for a perfect segue into our next session. So thank you so much, Steve. Really appreciate you. All right, JYB, you're up.